Flying into history. In the early 1940s, an amazing group of black pilots fought America's enemies abroad while facing discrimination at home. They were called the Tuskegee Airmen, and they were the first black pilots in the U.S. military. At the time, laws in many parts of the U.S., particularly in the South, required black people to be kept separate from white people, a practice known as segregation. Black Americans, for example, were forced to go to separate, often inferior public schools. They weren't allowed to shop in many stores, eat in certain restaurants, or ride in certain train cars. The U.S. military was segregated too. Though black soldiers had served their country in every war since the American Revolution, they weren't allowed to train in the same facilities or fight in the same units as white soldiers. Black people were also kept out of many important military jobs, including being pilots. Meanwhile, by 1940, World War II was raging in Europe. The conflict, which began in 1939, pitted the Allies, including Great Britain, against the Axis powers led by Germany, Italy, and Japan. The U.S. had not yet joined the war, but it had begun to build up its military. At the urging of black leaders, the U.S. government began to train black Americans as military pilots in July 1941. The program took place in Tuskegee, Alabama. Hundreds of black men studied to become pilots. Many others were trained as mechanics, medics, and drivers. Together, they became known as the Tuskegee Airmen. Then, in December 1941, Japan attacked the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, as well as nearby airfields. The U.S. then entered the war on the side of the Allies. The Tuskegee Airmen were sent to North Africa in 1943. Their first mission took place over the Mediterranean Sea. Many other missions soon followed in Europe and North Africa. The airmen were nicknamed the Red Tails because the tails of many of their planes were painted bright red. The men became highly respected and earned hundreds of awards for their actions in battle. By the time the war ended in 1945, the Tuskegee Airmen had flown more than 1,500 missions. They shot down 112 enemy aircraft and destroyed more than 100 others on the ground. Their skill and bravery helped the U.S. and its allies win the war and led to lasting changes in the armed forces.
There is no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry, or religion, or race, or color.
In 1948, U.S. President Harry S. Truman announced that the military would no longer be segregated. Still, the Tuskegee Airmen and other black Americans continued to face discrimination in the U.S. It wasn't until 1964 that segregation was outlawed nationwide. In the years after World War II, many Tuskegee Airmen went on to have long careers in the military. Many others became teachers, doctors, lawyers, businessmen, and political leaders. In 2007, the Tuskegee Airmen were presented with the Congressional Gold Medal, one of America's highest honors. Today, they're celebrated worldwide for their honorable service and tremendous courage, both on and off the battlefield.